Welcome to the introduction video of the 210 course, which is the course with the name Introduction to Economics. Well, let me open the PowerPoint. Close this. Okay. So let me start with the basic information related to the course. Well, at first, maybe I should tell you in a very basic sense what this course is about. It is the course where the participants will be able to get knowledge and be able to use that knowledge at the end of the course related to the economics as a science. So at the end of this course, basically, you should be able to have an overview of economics, the basic structure of the economics and basic issues that are relevant to the economics. Well, my name is Kerem Cantekin, and you can see here my email addresses. This is my office, and note that due to the pandemic, this course is an online course, asynchronous course. I made it that way so that people with who have conflict with other courses can take this course. So the course also doesn't have an office hour, but you are welcome to make appointments and we can meet through Zoom or other software. Just a brief note on sending me email. You can send me email to both of these addresses, but basically the second address is better, Matthew address is better. And just note that when you send me an email, it's a good idea to put all issues related to email to the subject line. If you just write assignment, for example, I might just assume that, that the email is just on assignment, even though in some cases the same email might also include other issues. And I usually print assignments together at the end of the week, so after the deadline, and sometimes a few days after the deadline. So that might mean that I might not look to the email until I begin printing all the assignments, and I might not see the issue the email mentions, the other issues the email mentions. And if you so if you write this, that the other subject, also the subject, then I will see that. And if you are sending email on two different important issues, it's also a good idea to send two different emails. So I would like you to inform you on myself a little. I was a student in METÜ Ankara campus in mechanical engineering department. I studied economics as a master and PhD students, first in New York, New School University in New York, and then University of Utah. And I taught courses. First course I taught was in Bosporus University, Turkey, and I have taught different courses in that university in summers. In one summer, I have gone to China and taught course there. I taught several courses in University of Utah also. And well, this is my actually, we might say beginning of the fourth year. in TRNC, and I'm teaching in this country since I come here. Well, there are well, my courses in different ways might be non-traditional, and that aspect of the courses in some cases confuses my students, and because of that, at the introduction of my courses, I usually talk a little bit on my teaching philosophy and principles. This course is by far my most traditional course. Still, even in this course, my students in past taught me my teaching methods, especially the exams are different from the other instructors who taught this course before. So the main principles I have are these, and all of them have some effect in my design of the course at varying degrees. First, labor is the most valuable resource we have, which means basically, I think the students, my students should be able to have ability to improve their grades, the previously poor grades, by putting more labor. So in this course, well, usually there are no extra points in my courses, except the cases when I am testing a new teaching method, basically. This term I taught on adding the course different aspects. But since we are in the middle of the pandemic, I thought maybe it's not a good time to test new teaching strategies or methods. So the course will still be a traditional, I mean, not in full sense traditional, but it won't change this term. It will be like it was in the last year. So except the cases when I'm testing something new, there are no extra points, but there are different options to replace your previously taken grade with a better grade in the course. The course should be fair. Fair here means that the students should be treated equally, which basically means that I cannot do any favor to a student unless I can do the same thing to all students, which means I am not able to provide exceptions to you because you require a grade, you need a grade, basically. If you need to take a good grade, I mean DDCCA grade, you think you need definitely take from this course. And in that case, try to keep track of your performance from the very beginning and come to me early if your performance is not as good as you want, and ask me what you can do to improve your performance. Don't come me at the end of the semester when the grades are already given. As long as there's time, I'm always happy to guide you to how to work more efficiently and how to get better grades in this course. However, the earlier you come, the more useful will be my potential advice to you. The course should be flexible, providing choices. So it should be, I mean, different people should be able to get tested differently as much as possible. They should be able to choose how they are being tested. And in some extreme cases, it's not possible in an introductory course like that, where what is being taught is pretty much standard. But as much as possible, in all courses, in some courses I taught, I also am aiming to provide some options that will give students ability to choose what they will be taught. But it's not that much possible in this course, but it is possible to choose how to be tested in this course in different ways. I will just talk on that to some extent, of course. So these are additional principles. I want to give you some the background of the information given, not just talk you on theories as if they are God-given theories. I would like to introduce you the discussion behind the theories as much as possible. Again, in this course, it is I can do this only in a limited sense, but I still do it as much as the course allows me. In other courses, you might see different opinions, different discussions on the theories I am teaching much more frequently. Well, you need to use information to build an opinion and discuss practical problems. This is something I'm testing in the exams to some extent, basically. Here I'm testing it at the most basic level, but still, for example, I don't ask you what a theory is, rather basically, or what, for example, a particular type of unemployment means. Rather, I ask you, for example, how you might, what can be a policy to cure or reduce that type of unemployment, in which you basically need to think a reasonable solution that should not be perfect. I should just understand, you know the basic definition, and you are able to think a little bit on how to use it to solve a problem, or how you can apply it to a practical case, basically. Criticize and critically evaluate what is being taught. Again, I sometimes ask you questions like, what do you think, for example, in some cases, theory is based on certain assumptions. It assumes that economy, certain actors, for example, consumers, behave in a certain way. And I might ask you to think whether in real life, your observations. Again, I'm not asking you to make any investigation, but rather just based on your personal observations, what you do, whether you think that assumption is right or wrong, and you need to give an example, any example. In other courses, again, well, criticizing and critically evaluating should be done more more frequently, and also a little bit more deeply than it is done in this course. This is the required textbook, although strictly speaking, you don't, you can pass and get a good grade from this course without this book, which means, for example, I don't ask any question that is directly written in this book. You don't need to look to the book. And there are other sources from which you can learn the subjects of this course, including my video lectures. But I can provide you also some other other internet sources if you want. But as an undergraduate student, textbooks are very helpful in learning the course topics. Well, it gives students a discipline, and kind of it also it's also written by people who are experts in teaching. I mean, just focus on how to provide best explanation for a particular course. And they are prepared by multiple teams with multiple people. So in some sense, it might provide a better pedagogical framework than I can do it alone with the sources I prepare single-handedly without any outside help from other people. So I will recommend you to get the book, but it is not required. By the way, this is Principles of Microeconomics. You should buy Principles of Economics. This picture's wrong. I mean, wrong picture. This is grading. Well, I provide 3%. I told you I won't provide any extra points, but this movie review is something really extra. So I did not integrate it to the course. It still remains as an extra point thing. So 20% of your grade comes from the assignments. 40% comes from midterm, 40% from final, and 3% from the movie review. This is the only course where the exams have such weight. Because in an introductory course, I thought still exams should be main way to teach you. Because when I put more weight on assignments, that gives you also more coursework to do. And students are, I don't know, some of you might be happy to have more weight on assignments and coursework, basically. But my experience told me most students are more happy when assignments have the main weight in the course. So at least in the introductory course, I maintain that way. And assignments, there are two different types of assignments: regular assignments and alternative assignments. The regular assignments are the unofficial study guide for the exams. The exam questions will be very similar to them. Actually, when I prepare the exams, I open the assignments and I make sure the questions in the exam and questions within the assignments are similar. There is nothing wildly different in the exam. Although I should also mention, usually I try to make exams a little bit more difficult than the assignments. But that means the relatively more simple questions in the assignments are less likely to be asked. Okay, video lecture time. The main point on the video lecture time I would like to mention is this. Unfortunately, I don't have a studio where I can cut my video pieces at certain parts. I'm still working on online studio with online studio programs. But without studio, and I try to take the video for the same lecture 3 times, 4 times, in a few cases. But if you don't have a studio, if you cannot cut and paste your video, you have certain mistakes. You cannot prevent it. So the video lectures don't look, strictly speaking, professional. Strictly speaking, professional means, I mean, like movies or like video lectures that are prepared by studios, basically. However, I think they include the basic, they give you the basic information. In a way, you can understand it. So I still think in practical sense, they are useful for you, at least some of you who like learning via listening. So I use them, and I plan to use them even after we return to face-to-face education, basically. But that's not your concern, of course. I plan to do maybe some face-to-face activity in the lecture hours and basically put my video lectures as the main informative source. But I'm still considering it, and I would like also to hear your comments if you want to give it. But note also when you are listening a video lecture, you may skip certain parts if you think you have understood something. I mean, sometimes you need to make multiple explanations to make people understand some subject. But you yourself might have already understood it in the first 2 minutes. So you might skip the next 4 or 5 minutes of explanation. So listen the video lectures in your way. Don't think that you need just open it and listen to the end without any interruptions. You might also go back and listen certain parts a few times if you need. And don't hesitate to ask me questions. If you need an explanation of a particular subject concept, tell me. I can take a different video for that. Also, I already have some video lectures prepared. I will listen them, and if I think I can improve them in any way, I will take them again. But if I can't, if I think they are good enough, I might still put them to the class page. So some videos might be old videos because of that. They might be taken not this semester, but last year or 1.5 years ago. And usually the videos start with a video and discussion. I might maybe suggest you either by writing it or maybe I can also take a short video just on that. I might provide you another video and another discussion that might be more recent, more relevant to today's topics. 2 years is not that long time. 1 year is 1.5 years or 1 year is not a long time. But still, I might have maybe some. I might suggest you some additional video, maybe. Then I will give you background information where I will give you how the subject of the course is developed theoretically, and whether or not there are discussions or issues related to that subject. If necessary, there's a math part. Usually in TNC and in Turkey, people know math. But in United States, many of my students did not have math background. And the United States is a federation, which means the math knowledge of the students were different because each school has a different curriculum. I mean, each state, in some cases, each city has a different curriculum. So you might never know which student knows what. So just to be safe, I had that part where I introduce mathematical knowledge related to that subject. And I keep it just in case again. If you know that math, then pass it. You don't need to watch it. And then there is a main part. The main part is basically the part where I introduce you the main subject, main topic, basically. And that's the part which I test in the exams and the assignments, regular assignments. And then there are practice questions, basically, which are similar to the assignments. And well, I usually did not have this in my video lectures, but in future and usually they take not that short time also. And usually I put discussions within the lecture, basically relevant discussions on the topic within the lecture. But in future, I plan to reproduce the video lectures with the part. Maybe I can just take that part where I have a specific discussion on an issue, highlighted issue. Again, as I said, there are issues already I mentioned in the main part and the background part, but I might highlight an issue and have a specific, relatively longer discussion on that issue, just on that issue. Or I might integrate this to the face-to-face activity inside of the classroom. I'm thinking about that. Assignments. There will be assignments given each of them on Friday, except first and last week I thought, but maybe I can even give it in last week. It won't hurt you. Why it won't hurt you? Because you don't need to do the last assignment. I will take 3 highest grade out of all assignments you have done. You have 2 weeks to complete the assignments. So if you have a particularly busy week, you can make up for that week in the next week. But if you are not able to work in a particular week, if you do the assignments of that week, you need to do it in the coming week. And though I take 3 highest out of the 12, 13 assignments, I mean, there are actually more, you will see in a minute. There are 24, 26 assignments. There are alternate assignments also. But I will strongly suggest you, if you are taking this course for the first time, to do all the assignments. They are useful for exams. At least look to them and try to work on them together. And I don't give you the answer key. Why? Because if I give the answer key, people memorize that answer key. You don't need the answer key to use those questions to prepare for your for exams, to use those assignments to prepare for the exams. If you have done the assignments and submitted, I will send you the particular questions which you have not done correctly. I will still not give you the answer key, because working on the questions and looking to your answer again to see where you have done the mistake is the way you can use these assignments most efficiently. That's the reason. And you can always come to me, arrange a Zoom meeting, and we can discuss your answer and where you have done the mistake. And there are some questions where there are multiple answers, especially after I have made this course online. I was aiming to make as many questions as possible, questions with multiple answers. So in some cases, one answer is not the only right answer. Every semester, my students ask me for the answer key. They discuss with me again. But that's one thing I am adamant, I don't give the answer key. In some cases, it could make even my life easier, because I may need to make separate Zoom meetings with many different students to discuss what they have done wrong. But I prefer that way, because I think, as I said, giving the answer key is not useful. In some cases, even when I have a slightly different question, they have given the question that the answer of the question that looked like the other question. Just because they have memorized it, my students. Why I'm taking 3 highs of the 12, 13 grades? If I think doing all assignments is necessary for you? Well, first, I don't want you to be afraid. I don't want you to not to work on the assignments just because you are afraid of your grade. I want you to use the assignments to see your performance. And if you do all the assignments, it's almost impossible for you to take all 20 points out of the assignments. If you take also into account the alternative assignments. And the second thing is, if people think they don't need the assignments, and some people who already maybe have taken the course may not need it, I don't want to enforce them this. When I first taught microeconomics course in the Bosporus University, I give the assignments a weight of 35, but many students who did not do the assignments at the mid-semester were not able to take CB at the end of at the middle of the semester. So I decided to, instead of making the assignments mandatory, I decided to make it optional to allow the students who think they can be successful without the assignments to show that, basically, to give them an option if they want. And the assignments contain 10 short answer questions and 1 analytical question, which is mathematical, basically. I also try to make an analytical question, a question with multiple answers, to let you set certain values or make certain decisions on that question. And these are now this slide is on the alternative assignments. Each week, in addition to the regular assignment, there will be an alternative assignment, which will be either a literature review or an article, a news piece, which might be not a short news, but a news article, but a long news article, or it might be related to a data. It might be a data report where you might need to download the data and interpret it. They are 1 to 3 page long, but I usually mention, within the assignment itself, I define the length, which might be 2, 3, or 1, 2. So not all alternative assignments are allowed to be between 1 and 3 pages. There might be a further limitation in each assignment. And basically, the review or report will replace your worst assignment grade. In other words, I will take actually the highest 3 assignment grades out of 24 or 26 assignments. Okay. Again, the same rule applies here. The alternative assignments will be given on Friday. You will have 2 weeks to complete them and submit it before Saturday midnight. 2 weeks later. If for some reason, in some cases, my computer might be problematic, and I might not have access to the assignment I have written or able to download it. If for some reason I upload it late, I will give you extra time, but I try not to do that as much as possible. I try every solution to prevent that. So literature reviews typically they need to contain a summary of the text, and summary of the text usually, it is not you just look to text and basically paragraph by paragraph summarize it. Rather, you need to do 3 things. You need to express what is the topic of this text. The text is what it talks about. What is its viewpoint? What is the author trying to make on that topic? What opinion, what point has the author on that topic? Again, your interpretation will take place, but you should also show some evidence related to your interpretation by saying, for example, the author makes this point. For example, he makes such a description which shows that he's making this point. And the methods used in it. What are the tools, the analysis, the data, the observations, the quotations the author uses to make the point. And then this is the basic summary of the article. And then you need to write how and why the text is related to what is covered in the course, or the current economic problem. So you should also evaluate the text. That's the basics of it. For the data reports, you basically need to download the data, process it, which might be just drawing a graph or showing trend lines in some cases. Present it, tell what data tells, and interpret it, what the data means, basically. And describe the most important characteristics of the data. You should also talk on, what is the most important thing we should take from the data? Which aspect of the data? Is its trend important? Is it important that, for example, certain variables, they are fluctuating, that they go down, up, even though trend might be relatively not that important. The fact that it's going up and down might be important. A certain year might be specifically important. What is important from data? You should talk on that and what it does on the economy. Okay, why it is important in economic sense. Okay, you can submit the assignments through OtTheClass, and scanning, taking photos, doing assignments with software, writing input method, all are okay, as long as I can open what you have sent. To test whether I can open what you have sent, you might just try to open it in computer labs. I think you should have access to computer labs now. I don't want to send me your assignments through email unless it is necessary, because I have done that before. It is a torture to me to find out all the assignments sent to the email. Many of the assignments are sent to the spam. Others are spread to between many different emails. And I can receive many emails. In some cases, within 200, 300 emails, I need to find 4 or 5 assignments spread within them. In some cases, I miss them. I don't see them. When I'm deleting mass emails on advertisements, for example. OtTheClass is safe. I never lose assignments there. If for some reason you cannot send the email through OtTheClass, then you can send me an email. But if you do that, at least send a message to me through OtTheClass. The assignment submission way, you can write me also physically write. With computer, you can write something in the system where you submit the assignment. Write to me, inform me through OtTheClass that you have sent your assignment through email, and make sure I have received it by checking your grade. Exams. There will be 1 midterm and 1 final in this course. Both have short answer and analytical parts. Assignments are unofficial guides to the exams. Typical exams have 15 short answer questions and 8 subsections. Analytical part with 8 subsections, which I can divide as I want. It might be 1 question with 8 subsections, or 1 question with only 1 subsection. The main rule is there are 8 subsections, and subsection means when you have a question with the first question, and then you have below it A, B, C, D, and each subsection has equal weight. So a question with 3 subsections has a higher weight than a question with 1 subsection. Okay, both exams are take-home exams. Once I upload it, you will have at least 24 hours to submit the answer. Sometimes I give more, basically a little bit more time. Why? uploading early, or I might give you 1 hour extra time sometimes, just to prepare it, just to prevent accidents, like missing the submission by a minute. And if you have exam in the same day, that's just the case for the same day. It's not the case for when you have an hour before or an hour, I mean, after the exam. Maybe if your exam is just before, I mean, you have 5 minutes, it might still be the case. I mean, the exam typically has a starting point, 1 p.m. or 8 p.m. or in some cases 5 p.m. I mean, a time like that as the starting point, because this is how the day-long exams are scheduled by the university. If you have exam during that exam period, I will give you an extra time, which is equal to the exam period, basically, plus an hour per exam. So if you have 2 exams that are 2 hour long, then I will give 3 hours per exam, which will mean you will have 6 additional hours. If you have another day-long exam, then communicate with me. We can talk on options you might have. But if you don't have a day-long exam, then that's the basic rule. I mean, if you have 2 hour long exam, that's the basic rule. I know it's not ideal, but unfortunately, that's all I can do. And in some cases, it's not possible to prevent conflict. Unfortunately, I try as hard as I want. Sometimes there is a conflict after I have set the exam time, and if it is that case, then I cannot do anything. I mean, I have already set the exam time, and removing it will mean other people might have other conflicts. It might not be necessarily exams, by the way. When I say the exam is Saturday between 1 and 1, someone might have buy a plane ticket after the exam time. That's another conflict, and students who complain about it will be right, because I have set an exam time. So that's why I cannot remove it after I have set the time, unless it is a really, really, very, very urgent and critical thing. Makeup policy. This policy was different before the pandemic, but pandemic made things more severe. So I decided to take all restrictions, which basically means that you can take makeup exam whenever you want it. Even if you have taken midterm or final, you can still take makeup exam. And you may decide that a makeup exam to replace your midterm, your final, or both midterm and final. That also means that I need to put that makeup exam at least 7 days after the final, because if someone is sick at the final, that person needs to decide, get well better. And also, that person should learn his or her grade before deciding, I mean, in some cases, to take makeup or not. You need to sign a document that tells I want to take makeup exam, and I would like my makeup exam grade to replace my midterm, final, or both exam grades. Once you sign that document and take the exam, you cannot take it away. I mean, it's not the case where you can take the final, and if its grade is lower than your midterm and final, that grade is accepted. It's not like that. You take a risk. If your grade is a little bit below to what you thought ideal, that might be a good risk to take. That's what I would like to tell you. I decided that because of the pandemic. I mean, many people have different type of stresses. So your exam day might not be a good day, for example. So I decided to give everyone another option, basically. But this might also mean, in some cases, unfortunately, I might give the people who have taken the makeup first incomplete as a grade and then replace that grade, because sometimes, especially in the second semester, there is not 7 days between the last exam day and the day when I submit the makeup grades, or maybe there can be 8 days, but 1 day might be too little to check the exam and give you some periods to make some objections, basically. So that's my makeup period. So makeups are also, I mean, a way to replace your midterm and final grade. So strictly speaking, in this course, you still have all the way up to the end of the semester to get an AA from the course. You don't lose this opportunity unless maybe last 2-3 weeks. I mean, I think you until the very end of the final, beginning of the final period, you still can potentially get A from this course. AA, I mean, not DA, but AA from this course. It's possible. So, but don't leave if you want A. Don't leave to get that grade, get necessary points up to the end of the semester. That will be my suggestion. Because at the end of the semester, if you have left everything to that, I mean, sometimes my students told me, I need to work for so much topic. I mean, in 1 day, and you are not meant to work for all those topics in 1 day. You have more time actually to work on all those topics. If you have left to a single day, of course, that would be difficult, or even a single week. I will provide further information on deadline of reports and related document related to makeup. Movie review. I tried to create. I mean, it started in a single course, but I spread it to all my courses. Basically, this to all my courses. In the semesters where face-to-face education was fully possible, I was also setting a date where we watched the movie together. It's not anymore possible, unfortunately, for now at least. So now the video is provided online, but there is basically a video. I usually put the movie review assignment just before the final period to make you a little bit relaxed. Maybe it's a semi-official assignment. There's a movie you need to watch, and you should review the movie, but you should also relate it to the economic theories, models, and issues. I will define specifics at the movie review assignment. It's extra points. So, I mean, even if you get 50, it will provide you 1.5 extra points. But if you want to put more effort on it, you can also put more effort on it. I mean, effort on it. Again, the basic review logic is the same, and I usually guide you to by asking you questions on the movie, and you should make sure that your review is coherent. Coherent means all parts connected, not separate answers given to separate questions. It should not be like that, and it should answer all the questions. I mean, it should both be coherent. It should not be just answer of the questions, but it should also provide answers to all of the questions. So this is movie review. So what are the contents of the course? There are 2 parts. The first part is microeconomics part. The second part is the macroeconomics part. Microeconomics, these are the 2. I mean, this is the most common way to divide economics as a science. Microeconomics concern mostly on separate markets. It doesn't focus on a company. It doesn't focus on a single person as a consumer buyer. It focuses on a market. It might be market for a good, or market of money, or market for labor. And it just studies how that particular market functions, how a market for car, market for books, market for education functions as a relatively in an isolated manner. Macroeconomics mostly focuses on how economy of a country functions as a whole. They have certain topics where these boundaries are relatively not that strict, but that's mostly what microeconomics and macroeconomics does. Well, there is no separate part which focuses on how the global economy as a whole functions. To some extent, maybe macroeconomics provide some hints to that, but just hints. It's not still a full study. But there's a separate part. There is a field in economics called international economics, which basically shows the effect of the international economic relations. And those, it's called international economics, and it provides both information or theories on how those effects affect single markets, like market for books, for example, or market for cars, but also how it affects the economy of the whole country as a whole, basically. We have some recent discussions on how those international effects are and how economic policies should be set regarding taking into account those effects. And I will also bring some issues, some major discussions, and try to put them into the context of the theories. Okay, and I might provide also some videos related to that. There are also some very interesting Turkish videos, but unfortunately, all my resources needs to be English. That's a restriction I have. Restriction because since we are living close to Turkey and we are in TRC, both countries have Turkish as language, so the issues related to TRC or Turkey are usually discussed in Turkish. Unless they are discussed in English, I cannot include them to the content of the course, or at least unless there's an English subtitle to those discussions. So, first part of the course. This is the introduction to the course on economics. So I'm doing it now. And then there is a topic called demand and supply, where basically we show how we can mathematically model typical market of a good, basically, and we will see the most basic model. It's called demand and supply model. Also, there is a theory related to that model. So there's a separate law of demand and supply model. And we will also see a tool that is used by, most economists, although I have my reservations on the efficiency of that tool. I think it's discussable, but most economists use that tool to measure efficiency of the market, the total benefit market of a single good produces. It's called consumer and producer surplus. We will see, we have a separate topic on applications of demand and supply model, which actually contain many applications, but I reduced them to, there are some complaints of my students telling that it's too difficult, this course was too difficult. So in order to simplify it, I have reduced the applications I mentioned under the applications of demand and supply model topic. And then there is consumption and the household, where we will see, we will start looking to the more complex model of a market, which is actually studying a self-declared perfect market. Except perfect competition. Perfect competitive market is the name that's given to it. This name is accepted by many economists, although, but I still think that, when you hear the word perfect, you should never stop asking in what sense it's perfect. And we will also see why this perfect competitive market is named as perfectly competitive. And within this model, we also study how consumption in the market is shaped. Again, our focus point will be the whole market, but we will see how consumption is affecting that market. And then we will see how production and companies affect that market. And then we will see everything together. We will see the whole model of the perfect competitive market. And we will also study how in real life, this perfect competitive market may become imperfect, and how these imperfections may affect the market. And then we will see monopoly and imperfect competition as a separate topic. Monopoly is when there's only single seller in the market, and imperfect competition is when you have competition, but it's not perfect as it's mentioned. Of course, we will only see some models of the imperfect competition. I mean, there is much to discuss on imperfect competition. I mean, maybe there should be a separate course on that, but we will see in a very basic sense. I mean, the most basic models of imperfect competition. Oh, in the second part, we will have a separate introduction to macroeconomics. Then we will see GDP and growth. The GDP is the whole production level. It's a measurement of whole production level, although there are discussions on its measurement techniques. So we will also see that from them. And then we will see growth. I mean, how the growth of this production level, basically. And then we will see labor market, unemployment, and inflation. Labor market is the thing that most interests me in economics, basically. But usually it is studied in connection with inflation, and it is not the heavily studied subject in introductory courses, which is, I think, not a good characteristic of those courses. But since it's traditionally done this way, I also did not want to go too much off-road on that in that aspect. Market of goods and services, where you see market of specific goods that are bought and sold. Money and interest rate, where you will see market of money specifically. Then we will see AD-AS model, where we will connect everything together and see a single model of the whole country. AD-AS means aggregate demand, aggregate supply, which is very similar to the demand and supply model of a single market, but they represent whole economy. And there are some differences, and we will see those differences. And then we will see fiscal and monetary policies and the government intervention. I mean, how government can regulate the markets and how we can represent the effects of those regulations in AD-AS model, and also some issues, some discussions related to that government intervention. And then we will have a subject, international economics as subject. I can cover all of these topics. That's the beauty of having an asynchronous course, since our course officially doesn't have a particular day of a week as its teaching day. None of the holidays is interrupting us. As long as the whole week is whole day, our course always, we always have our topic subject covered and assignments in that particular week. Okay, well, again, this is I have a warm-up part within these slides. I will just present part of that warm-up part, not all of it. The rest of it, if you are interested, I will let you read. There is a warm-up part that is related to the economics as a topic, but then there's another warm-up part where you will see an explanation on theories and models, and basically an example of a model. This one I won't cover, but you will have this slide sent, so you can look to that. But nothing I will cover in the rest of this presentation will be asked to you, so you don't need to worry in that sense, but it will help you to learn the context of what is studied in this course, so it's still useful, I think. So the first question, what is economy? The textbook explanation of economy is the social science that studies how scarce resources are directed to the unlimited means and wants of the individuals of people by the individual choices made made by the people, basically. So I will break up that explanation a little bit. First thing you should note is each society has resources. It has needs and wants. Need is something you need to survive as individual, but also in some cases as biologically, but also in some cases as social member. For example, most of the you don't need a cell phone to survive, but without cell phone in the United States to survive biologically in strict sense. But in the United States, without having a cell phone, without being able to give a cell phone number, you are not able to find a job. So you won't survive socially without a phone. You won't be able to find a job. You won't earn money. You won't even be able to buy the food in that case. So cell phone is still a need. But going to a Disneyland is not something you strictly need to survive socially or individually. So it's want. This can be critical because in some cases, the societies can cut off or individuals can cut off the needs once, but cutting off the needs is more difficult. It will reduce their health level or their ability to participate in social framework, basically. Of course, there is no thin line. There's no definite line between them, but that still making that definition is important. So each society, from the very beginning of the humanity, transforms the resources, natural resources, or resources that are produced by previous people. Like, for example, this book is a resource which I can use to produce something else. I might use, for example, my computer to produce this lecture. So these resources are transformed by the labor power, strictly personal resource of humanity, to the needs and wants of the society. And that's the most strict definition of economics. What about the rest of it? Unlimited needs and wants and the scarce resources question. Well, and the resources directed in a most efficient way. Sometimes it's mentioned those resources are directed in most efficient way to meet the unlimited needs and wants. Basically, these things are mentioning a specific model of economic system, which is called, well, in some cases it's called capitalism, although it's also called market economy. And capitalism or market economy is defined in different ways. According to the most economists, the most important characteristic of it is the dominance of the market. Well, basically, those resources are sold within the market by individuals, and they are also needs and wants are brought by the individuals to the market, and they are bought and sold again within the market. So market is the basic institution that regulates these needs and wants, and of course, since it doesn't have a particular ruler, it is directed by the choices of the individuals. Of course, there can still be some regulators of the market, or buyers and sellers might try to manipulate the market in different ways. Besides, acting as a single buyer, powerless buyers or sellers, basically. So that's why individual choices is added. And scarce resources, another aspect is, of course, some schools in economics think that the most important aspect is basically the fact that things are owned privately. That means, of course, if things are owned privately, the resources I have are usually scarce, because basically, if resources are owned privately, unless there is a resource that is on everyone at sufficient level, that resource will be marketed. I mean, if everyone has water, then that resource won't be brought to the market. Everyone will be able to use water they own separately. And since basically market is taught as main institution of this economic system, and basically it's heart of the study, in that case, I mean, still the people might use that water to produce something at their homes, for example, but it's not usually it won't be an aspect of the economy most economists at least will be interested in. Unlimited wants is basically an assumption of the current economics, and it's also connected to the aspect that this economic system at least promotes, according to some views, needs continuous economic growth. So production levels should increase continuously. So economic system is expected to provide more and more goods and services. So one explanation that is people have unlimited wants and needs. So the economic system needs to provide more and more to satisfy them. I question this part also significantly for reasons, but that's one of the explanations. And most efficient way, of course, that's viewpoint to current economic system. Again, not necessarily everyone agrees with this. So what is a market? That's something I should answer. And here we should know that in common language, it is a physical place, I like to see here. But in language of economics, they are imaginary places. So if I'm talking on a market for good book, for example, in Turkey or in even Güzelyurt, I don't mean a specific shop. I mean all activities that include selling or buying books is within this imaginary market. So markets are imaginary places. When it's there, so when I'm talking a specific market, like market for books, they are also so when I'm talking on the market. I mean, sometimes whole economic system is taken as a large market. Okay. Again, economics as a contemporary science focuses on how market economy works. Even the radical economic schools mostly focus on that. There are some exceptions. Feminist economics is an example. I'm giving a course on that, which focuses on also economic activities inside of the homes, but like cooking, for example. But most schools, even most radical schools, like Marxian economics, for example, are focusing on the market economy. Capital, written by Marx, is a textbook that describes, by Marx interpretation of Marx, of course, the market economy. Marx is calling that economic system capitalism, not market economy, which means an economic system which is directed, shaped, regulated by capital. He thinks the capital, its role is more important than the institution of market. I also there's also a separate course I'm teaching on the Marxian economics, which is kind of an alternative introduction. I mean, both gender economics and Marxian economics are like alternative introduction to economics, basically. But there, I also give you discussions related to those economic approaches. Now, schools and fields in the economics. Schools are shaped by the viewpoints, which means they look to different issues, different aspects of economic system, but from a different approach, from a different viewpoint. The main schools related to the viewpoints are neoclassical, New Keynesian, post-Keynesian, and Marxist school. Neoclassical school mostly assumes market is the most efficient, market economy is the most efficient, or capitalism is the most efficient economic system. mostly means, I mean, in most cases it's most efficient, but there might be some cases, most neoclassical economists think there might be some cases where market might not function. Rarely they think always it is so, but it's rare. So neoclassical economics always have this equilibrium point. So there is a disruption created by an outside force, and market economy brings economy back to the equilibrium point. And they show, they aim to prove, and I will show how they think they prove it, that this equilibrium point is the most efficient point. So New Keynesians, mostly, there are some crossovers between them. So some neoclassicals might think a little bit like New Keynesians, some New Keynesians like neoclassicals, but they mostly think that market is, in the long run, if you allow sufficient time, bring the economy to the most efficient point, but in the short run, in shorter periods, it might bring the economy to the inferior point. So government intervention or some regulation, some institutions might speed up that process. So they typically have short run and long run equilibrium points. I mean, economy returns to an inferior point in the short run, short period of time, but if you allow enough time, it will return to the better point. Post-Keynesians think economic system is at all occasions likely to bring economic system, economic conditions to inferior points if they are not regulated. But with regulations, you might basically bring economic system to a better point. So they think institutions are very important. Without institutions, the market system doesn't run as efficient as it can. For example, Daron Acemoglu is an example, and an example of economists who think that institutional structure is very important to make capitalist system work as efficiently as possible. And they typically have multiple equilibrium points. I mean, one the economic system gets to if you don't have good institutions, and one it gets to by have better institutions and regulations. And sometimes also cycles, I mean, like economic continuously goes to an inferior point and good point and inferior point again and again. And basically, they show how regulations might basically reduce the severity of these fluctuations, basically. Of course, each of them uses each other's these tools, but I mean, the most important aspects of economics are expressed by neoclassicals, by equilibrium points, by New Keynesians, short-run, long-run equilibrium, post-Keynesians, cycles, and the double equilibrium points. For Marxists, basically the economic system is continuously going to a worse and worse, continuously an inferior point. Maybe in the short run, they think the economic system might stabilize and basically create good results. But in the long run, with sufficiently long time, which might be in some cases 50 years, 100 years, the economic system will create an increasing severe problems. So for them, the most important aspects of the economic system are trends, basically. Trends means, I mean, some variable continuously goes to a certain way. It doesn't go to a certain point and stays there. And then there are some schools which that basically based on the idea, economics is not studying certain aspects, certain elements which are important sufficiently. And they build a different economic school where to all economic, to different economic points, to different economic aspects are studied by including that element. Institutions typically think that institutions are not fully studied in economics, so they include how institutions affect the economic system. You will see, we also don't see, I mean, internal functions of institutions or how a specific type of government, for example, is affecting economics. And this is something we won't study, neither in neoclassical school nor in Marxist school, basically. So institutions do that. And to some extent also, the neurotic is also institutionalist, by the way. Feminists think that gender relations and family is not studied sufficiently. Environmentalists think the environmental effect on economic system is not studied sufficiently. And then there are fields. Those are focusing on a specific aspect of economics. The most typical ones are, I mean, the micro and macroeconomics, but others are behavioral economics, which study effect of psychology. I mean, usually in our study, we don't go much deep on the psychology of the economic actors. I mean, behavioral economics focus on how psychology of the people are affecting markets or overall economy. Development economics focus on how relatively underdeveloped, relatively poorer countries, I mean, with low production level, might become richer countries with high production level. I mean, usually the benchmark is the poverty, and people. Poverty is basically the line below which, if you earn below that amount, you are not able to meet basic needs. So usually, I mean, whether how many people are below that poverty line, and how close the overall production per capita, production per person is close to that line, is the thing that shows whether a country is poor or not. And development economics studies how those countries can get developed, basically. International economics, we have already mentioned it. Finance focus on the money market. Labor economics focus on the labor market. And econometrics basically shows is studying how the statistical methodology can be used for study of economics. One last thing, I have not mentioned it here, but I think I have opened the older slide, so that's why it's not here. But let me mention it. If you want at any week, usually people want it just before the exams, but at any week, we can set recitation hours. Some of my students should demand it, and if they do it, I will ask to the students who demand it, what time is better for them. I might set a recitation time, a Zoom meeting, face-to-face Zoom meeting, where you can ask me questions related to topics, exams, or assignments. Some people might not be able to attend it. It's not mandatory, so you don't need to attend it. But if you really want to attend, but there is a conflict, then tell me. I might set a different time or an alternative time, if necessary, at the same week for the students. So that's the last thing I would like to mention. So this is the end of the introductory video to the course. I hope to hear from you. I hope the video was useful for you. And that's my ending, since COVID has started, COVID-19 pandemic has started. So I always end by telling you, I hope all of you will stay healthy, and let me mention it. I hope all of you will stay healthy. See you.